Rich from Giant Finance will be joined by Maxine from the REC today as we recap on the year and also look ahead to 2025. As we go through the session today, please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask any questions that we'll try to answer at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you on to Rich and Maxine to introduce themselves and start the session.
Thanks, Betty. Much appreciated. And good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many people here today. Yes, as Betty said, my name is Richard Foster. I'm the Client Sales Director at Giant Finance Plus, part of the Giant Group. We offer full back office funding and administrative solutions for the recruitment industry. We're very delighted to have Maxine Bligh from the REC join us today. Maxine, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I'm Maxine Bligh. I'm Chief Membership and Innovation Officer at the REC. The REC is the voice of the recruitment industry. We're a membership organisation. We represent about 3,000 recruitment agencies in the UK, and collectively our members are putting about 1 million temp workers on site every day, and around 1 million into perm employment every year. In terms of my role, I look after the overall kind of value proposition that the REC offers and our products and services. But over the last few months, I've been particularly thinking about how the industry's changing and how we respond to some of that change, and in particular, the change that AI and technology is bringing. So really looking forward to spending a bit of time thinking about that today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Maxine. Yeah, I thought it's that time of year when we all sort of reflect on what's gone and also start thinking about New Year's resolutions personally and for the business and looking ahead. So we're going to try and split the webinar into kind of 3 areas today. First one to review the past, so look at the year that's been so far. Then we're looking at the present, so where we are right now and things that we might be reacting to as businesses or recruitment agencies at the moment, and then also the future. So what do we need to look at for next year in recruitment? What can we expect and what tools are available for us? And that's obviously we're going to focus on the AI aspect and the good and the bad parts of that. The past, present and future was I'll try and link to Christmas with the Scrooge Christmas Carol. So that's about as Christmas as we're getting today. So Maxine, I don't think it will come as a surprise to say to everybody that 2024 in recruitment has been a challenging 12 months. There's certainly been a lot of different challenges for us as a finance company, for all of the recruitment agencies as well. Just a couple of things that I've noted on today. We've got the post-Brexit immigration rules, which we might touch on, the flexibility around hybrid demands, and you've got clients wanting one thing and workers or contractors wanting another and maybe not matching up. And then obviously the economic uncertainty and less of a demand for recruitment at the moment, where people may have a recruitment freeze. So would you mind sort of just discussing where your thoughts have been in the last 12 months? Maybe we can have a discussion about that. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Richard. Let's unpack, I suppose, a little bit in terms of what our members are telling us and anecdote, but also what the data is telling us as well. I mean, it has been a really challenging 12 months for a lot of the industry. Still some firms doing really well, but I think in general, it has felt quite tough. And I think coming into the year, we were sort of cautiously optimistic, and members were telling us things were picking up. Certainly as we sort of headed towards Easter, we were looking at a little kind of pickup. But I suppose all year it's felt that recovery that we were looking for in the market has been stalling. So you would see periods of little pickup, and particularly when you look on the client side, sentiment picking up and then it just falling away again. And I think some of that has obviously been to do with sort of stages of the government cycle and where government is. So actually the announcement of the election brought a little bit of a bounce, because I think firms were like, great, there's going to be, there'll be some government certainty. But then I think you saw obviously the Labour government come in and straight away announce some quite challenging plans around employment rights, very clear kind of with intention of what they wanted to do. But that sort of led firms to again step back a little bit and say, okay, we're thinking of hiring.
Yeah, exactly that. Everyone's like, all right, as soon as the government's in, we're going to make these changes, or we're going to know how to react. And then it was like, right, now actually, because the day one rights might change, we're going to wait for the budget. And then again, we're going to wait till the impact of that comes in. So it has just been stalled, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it is that stalling. I think we'd seen sort of underlying kind of need and desire to hire, but not having that confidence has sort of translated okay for temp. So people have
Yeah.
said, okay, maybe I'll put a temp role in where there would have been a perm. But certainly, permanent recruitment is in its longest dip that we've seen for
Yeah.
really quite some time. So it's a kind of 2-year decline period now, where previously we would have seen sharper dips, but the market recover much faster.
Yeah.
There hasn't been that bounce back. It's just that sort of slow flat that we're looking for the pickup from. And I think, as you pointed out, the budget was then very challenging from that point of
Yeah.
view. And I think, as again, what we're hearing anecdotally is that clients are just sort of stepping back, saying, okay, well, looking at those, looking at where national insurance contributions, looking at that rise, looking at the lowering of the threshold, we're just going to have to go away and kind of
Yeah.
rethink again our plans for hiring. So, yeah, definitely challenging from that
How,
point of view.
so Maxine, how have you, we've obviously got our own network of clients, a handful compared to the rec members. How have you seen your clients react, particularly those sort of perm only recruitment companies?
Yeah, I think look, I think there are some where they have strong relationships that are really looking to sort of foster those and sort of
Yeah.
demonstrate that expertise, build up the partnership, and kind of use the opportunity to demonstrate how the labour market knowledge and expertise that they have and that the industry has,
Yeah.
how that can be helpful. So to help clients think through, or what their plans are and could be. And
Yeah.
okay, can they afford to hire, but also can they afford not to hire? What's the kind of consequence and the kind of productivity impact?
Yeah.
I think the other thing is probably just pointing out the cost of a bad hire, because I think there's been a little bit of a retrenchment where firms go, okay, maybe we'll just do this hiring ourselves, but without
Yeah.
that kind of expertise and understanding of what the market wants. And I think you mentioned that at the start. Actually, candidate expectations have changed quite a
Mm.
lot. Maybe we'll come on to that. That actually, the expertise of the industry is needed, and we're
Yeah,
actually
I'd quite like
changing
to
that.
touch on that now, actually, Maxine, because one of the things that we've seen, certainly from our clients, is exactly that. We've got a candidate base that want the flexibility and hybrid working, whereas and some clients are looking at, actually, we want to drive back to having people in the building now. We want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our candidates or our employees, because we've got to, if we're reducing costs, the people we have in the business need to be working as hard as they can, and I don't feel I've got that level of control.
Mm.
So have you seen in your conversations a move back to sort of, I say pre-COVID, but that kind of time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is that mismatch, and I think a sort of change in prioritization from candidates. So yes, pay is
Yeah.
important, and clearly, like, cost of living has been tough. But actually,
Yes.
they're willing to make some trade-offs on pay for more of that
Yeah.
flexibility in terms of where and when and kind of
Yeah.
how they work. But as you say, at the same time, because things are tight, then actually people are looking for wow, we need you in the office. We want you
Yeah.
collaborating. I think interesting, we want to hear you and see you. And I think it's interesting to sort of see how that is playing out. I think even within our
Yeah.
own industry, our biggest members, they're wanting their recruiters back in the office more. So yeah, I
I
think
know it
as
was the rec partner meeting in November. I think it was face to face. Well, I think it was optional, wasn't it? But I know when Mike Boswell from our sales team attended, he said it was great because it's people he hadn't seen in 3D for
yeah,
12 months basically. Um,
yeah, and I
and
think
we
that's sorry, go on,
No,
yeah.
you go on. Oh, I was going to say, we've found the same from a sales approach. We've sort of just fallen into this. We can send all our documents out DocuSign now, so we don't have to go and visit. Everything's done over Teams, and it's so convenient and quick. We're saving on mileage. What we've lost is that what recruitment's all about, which is the human touch. And actually, we have enforced going out again and seeing people face to face, and the relationships and the number of closed deals, etc., just growing and growing because that's what it is about. And we let our foot off the gas, as it were, on that. I think.
Yeah, and I think people are sort of seeing the benefits again of that relationship piece and the
Yeah.
collaboration and kind of some of the
Yes.
creativity and ideas that come from that. I think something we've heard consistently throughout the year, though, is that business development for the industry has been really hard, just in terms of, well, actually looking out into firms, trying to arrange those face-to-face meetings, just a change in, the way that the pandemic and tech has kind of changed availability of where and how you contact people,
Yeah,
and actually
true.
how you do that. It's becoming harder and harder to get those face-to-face meetings that you need to sort of really add value. And I think we've talked quite a lot and tried to highlight to clients. So we've done a campaign called Aim Higher, which is around the importance of making time really for that recruitment relationship and partnership, because that's
Yes.
how you're going to get the best results out of it. But part of that is face to face.
Yeah, I mean, you do absolutely. This time is all about nurturing those good relationships you've got, isn't it? And looking at where your top clients are really. One of the things I've mentioned before was about shortage skills. So certainly in certain sectors in particular, we've seen in still busy, has been throughout the year and will continue to be, as healthcare.
Yeah.
I think it's become our busiest sector, whereas maybe we were sort of construction previously to that. How have you seen your clients or the agencies that the RSC deals with in terms of the new immigration rules, etc., and the impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another challenge, isn't it? Over the top of this is that the labour market, particularly for those high-end skills, if you look at high-end engineering, elements of kind of tech, although maybe a kind of change in what those roles and skills are, that actually candidate availability is still low and tight. And if you
Yeah,
look at, say, changes post-Brexit, number of people that sort of exited the workforce during the pandemic, on just the kind of the fact that we still don't have enough people qualified in those skills, that those markets still are quite tight. And I mean, you mentioned healthcare, clearly there's always that kind of demand there,
yeah,
but still really challenging kind of double whammy for that market, I think, with government's position on use of agency work. And I think a
hmm
fundamental misunderstanding of kind of the important role that agencies play in staffing the NHS. So yeah, I think there are definitely areas where that candidate availability is still proving a real
yeah,
challenge, and I think it's interesting to see how firms are looking at different strategies, I suppose, to access that talent and nurture the
yeah.
kind of candidates that they have.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think we've discussed the last 12 months. We don't want this to be a downer webinar. There are lots of positives to think about. One thing when we're talking about the present is how agencies, such as many on this call today, looking to make decisions at the moment, maybe to address shortages, reduce costs, etc. But I think it's key that we talk about why knee-jerk decisions perhaps aren't the right thing to do. And the market is going to come back. There'll be a period of gradual rebalancing, hopefully, over the next 6 months. So, have you got, Maxine, from your perspective, how you feel an agency should be sort of approaching the market as it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's like pick up on that first point around I suppose optimism is that the market is definitely still there in certain areas. And I think part of the problem that we've got is that we're comparing the market with that post-pandemic sugar rush where
Yes.
vacancies were
Yeah.
up at the kind of two million point. But there is still, I think, in looking at our last figures, around 719,000 vacancies out there. So, and certainly there are firms that are doing well where they have their specialisms and their
Yeah.
niche and they're kind of going after what's out there. I think that preparedness, as you say, looking to next year, we are looking to sort of get back into growth.
Yeah.
And I think it's about that preparedness. So how are our members sort of staying match fit? I think a lot of them have used a quieter period to look at upskilling where they can. So again, you had this generation of consultants that came on in that post-pandemic boom, and actually sort of hadn't had to develop, I suppose,
Yeah.
some of the skills that they need for the market when it normalizes. So using the opportunity to look at that, using the opportunity to really look at kind of tech stack, and kind of where are the productivity savings to be
Mhm.
made, and where is the kind of efficiencies to be gained within the business. But making sure I think that they're maintaining standards, and keeping, we're able to keep to those sort of high levels of standard and customer service that are ultimately going to be their differentiator when the market picks up.
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen that. I mean, normally we're talking to agencies at the moment, or our clients, about closing down for Christmas, about quietening down. And this year it's been completely opposite in terms of we're going to use this time to upskill, as you've said, to nurture those relationships with the candidates and the contract and the clients, because when everyone else may be slowing down, if you can just be the one that they remember and refer back to, and the contractors as well, that they're thinking, oh, okay, they do care about me. They're offering different things. They're telling me what the market's going to be like in the next few months and what they've got on board to offer us. So I think it is massively important those relationships are maintained, and certainly where people are looking at cutting costs, because we have to discuss that. If your clients are seeing that and your candidates are seeing that, they're going to notice a drop off in service because you're not going to be able to reach the same levels you were. So it's certainly something that needs to be thought about and not an knee-jerk decision on that front.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that we'd acknowledge how challenging that is. Talking to members even this last couple of weeks, it's been really tough. And I think, most of them, we did a poll on our webinar last week, but, most of them are coming in kind of below what they budgeted and kind of forecast at the start of the year. So we understand there are kind of cost decisions to make, but I think it is looking at those in the balance of what is going to be needed to capitalise on that pickup next year.
Yeah, and I think innovation is essential. You talked about being a niche or having a niche. I mean, what you don't want to do is just take on work in a sector that you may not be experienced in, because you might not be able to offer the same level of skills you have before. But I think if you've got anything that you can innovate through people in your team and have discussions you may not have had before. So we've got clients at the moment looking to save money, and we're offering them new services they've not used before. So we've got our online timesheet functionality, whereas before they might have been manually entering timesheets each week, and that process is going to save them resource hours each week. So we're not saying to get rid of staff, but we're saying you can use those staff in different places. And I think, as we said, this downtime gives people opportunity to just review things they might not have done before.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and I think we go on to touch on some of them with as we kind of move into AI. But yeah, that's exactly the type of examples we're hearing. How can the systems that you've already got in place maybe work a bit harder for you? Some of that functionality that's already there, are you making the most of it? And I think as you say, firms are going to be looking at, well, what are the new opportunities for us? Where are the new markets? Where do we need to evolve? And I suppose I touched at the start on the fact that the industry is changing. I think if you look at the language of how the industry, look at kind of the biggest firms in the sector, look at how they're describing themselves and what they do in terms of that kind of talent solution piece, that deep expertise. There are different business models that go with that. So I think having some time to really kind of think about what that means for your business, it feels like now's the time to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's no longer, well, I don't think it's been for years, but the bums on seats thing, just getting a person into a role, that talent sourcing and selection, we have to work for our money more than ever, don't we? And prove that as a recruiter, we'll come on to this with the AI, but the skill it's finding that individual for the right job, and its personality, it's the skill set, it's everything. So I guess it does move us on to what we're hoping to talk to about AI today. So really we're focusing on the year ahead. So being optimistic, looking at an improved picture, hopefully, in 2025. And there is no doubt that AI is going to play a massive role in recruitment next year, offering tools and capabilities to enhance our efficiency and hopefully improve client and candidate experiences. But we mustn't forget what we're good at in recruitment, which is the personal touch and that human touch. So, Maxine, it'd be great to just understand where the RAC sees AI in terms of with you guys and with the market in general. And then I've got a few notes in terms of things that I've seen as I've been trawling through websites and LinkedIn, etc. But it seems to be everywhere at the moment, chat GPT, AI, etc. So yeah, it'd be great to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting. As I was sort of preparing for this, I was thinking about what I would have said on this last year and how much it's changed. Because I think, that the coming into the year and probably still the first 2-3 months of the year was very much around what do you mean about AI? Yeah, we're kind of keeping a watching eye. And those conversations have really evolved over the last 6 months into members talking about quite advanced use cases at one end and how they're really kind of embedding some of the generative AI and start sort of piloting the change that can make. So I think, it's changed and come on a lot, and I would expect that to kind of really kind of take off even more next year. I think it's really important to say and to show that as an industry, we see it as an opportunity, not a threat.
Yes.
So as
Yeah.
you say, that human side of recruitment, the ability to talk somebody into a job to really show that good fit,
Yeah.
like that's not something that AI can do, but what it can do is save on kind of admin, on bring in some of that productivity that helps you focus on that human bit. I guess just to pick up, so we just launched our recruitment industry status report last week, and around 41% of our members across the UK are already using AI for recruitment specifically, and another 26% expressed their intentions to kind of adopt those technologies within the next year. So if you're
That's big
looking kind of
numbers.
next year, that's kind of 2/3 of our
Yeah.
membership.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really sizable, and I think very
Yeah.
different on what that would have been a year ago.
And
And
to
then
what extent are those? I guess that's just any use of AI, is it? So that's writing or sourcing CVs or candidates and
yeah, I mean, the four kind of standing out. So taking notes, and the note taking function, which I
yeah,
guess we'll see in these meetings
yeah.
now, and then how that kind of is automatically kind of uploaded into the CRM. A lot
I
around.
when you've been on one of those calls on Teams and you get the review at the end and it goes, Richard made one good point in the meeting. You're like, oh, I thought I'd done much better there.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
brilliant
Let's
because
not
it
score
does
this one.
summarize. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, it's very interesting to see, looking at, you put some of the meeting transcripts in now, and if you were looking at kind of likelihood of conversion, if it was a sales meeting,
Yeah.
the technology can do that for you and tell you kind of likelihood that client will
Yes.
buy and kind of next steps, etc. So I think, yeah, some really interesting use around kind of BD and that kind of notes element. Some fundamental things around kind of organizing and scheduling interviews and calendar integrations. Then stuff around kind of performing automated background checks, screening candidates by scoring and ranking applicants based on defined criteria. And I saw a company do a sort of candidate screening demo a couple of weeks ago live, and it's interesting to see that, and then how you can
Mm.
refine that and how you can put your own kind of company ethos, approach,
Yeah.
language into the model that
I
defines it.
saw I saw I read an article about that and it was saying you can identify suitable candidates and it takes all the emotion out of it. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, well, that's not necessarily a good thing. It's great to get the data there, and if you've got 20 suitable candidates as opposed to 100, that saves you a lot of time as a consultant. But the emotional side is a skill set, isn't it? Finding the right person that's suited. So I think this is where there has to be a mix and match of AI and human skills, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's really important that the benefits are felt by the candidates in this process. And I think
Yeah,
there's an element of, well, will that be a candidate choice to be screened
yeah,
by kind of AI or a human? Um, you know, how does it help them? In terms of customizing their CVs to job descriptions, etc., or helping them customize kind of answers as they think about how they
yeah.
prepare, and then how they receive feedback as well. But I think that's kind of a risk, isn't it? That it has to feel like it adds value to the candidate and not just saves the firm
Yeah,
money.
yeah, exactly that. I mean, I think when you can go onto LinkedIn and you'll see 20 posts and 19 have probably been written by a chatbot, and you can sort of tell there's certain words or certain nuances that they have. It'll be interesting to see how the CV grows now. I mean, because I'd imagine most candidates when they're submitting their resumes are going to be through AI. Here you go, just take my LinkedIn page, and whether an individual one where they've made their own effort and different will make a difference to an actual placement nowadays.
Yeah, and I think recognizing still the value that they need to add beyond what the
Yeah,
technology can do for them. And I think
yeah,
that's true across the piece, isn't it?
yeah,
Still requires that edit, still requires the human eye, and
yes,
I think that is a big risk for every industry. But thinking
yeah,
about as consultants are starting to use it to generate kind of approach emails,
yeah,
to do some of that marketing content, etc., it still really needs that checking,
yeah,
and that kind of adoption into language that you would use, still to make it feel human. I think the Americanization one is still
yeah.
something
It's
that
also
comes through
Zeds
and kind of
everywhere.
makes it
Yeah,
obvious. Yeah.
yeah. I think the other side is obviously so that the candidate and the client side from a sales and a client nurturing perspective is one thing. The side where we've actually started experimenting with it is the sort of trend analysis, and certainly when we're looking at risks. So we've got our own risk team, and obviously we lend money or we purchase invoices. So we're looking at the likelihood of those invoices being paid or not being paid, and certainly in this market, when you can go through and you can look at a payment history, but AI model can tell you, well, they would normally have paid by now, so here's your priority call. That is just going to become the norm, I think, because rather than the approach of working through a ledger as a credit controller, as you might have done A to Z, or I'm going to phone these clients today, you've got a list being created for you, which is incredible. And we're maintaining the human touch because an individual needs to call and go, something didn't feel right, as opposed to just automation. But actually, it's working alongside what we've got as a skill set, I think. So we found that really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really interesting kind of case, isn't it? And a really, I suppose, a real point around data and kind of use of data, and the fact that some of it's going to be as good as the data that you're putting into your own systems.
Of course, as ever, yeah.
So, I think just talking to members about the fact that they do need to have a kind of a data policy, a kind of clear approach to where data goes and kind of where it doesn't. But then, as you say, then what it can be used for. And I think, it's something we're doing at the REC is just that flip to how do you start with the data and the kind of evidence for us that's around how do we use that to show kind of to determine what we do and make it very based in like member need and member challenge, and that everything starts with that. And I think firms being able to use the technology to sort of pivot to that and really kind of go to what customers are saying, wanting, what the trends are showing. Brings lots of opportunity with it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I guess also you've got things in a wider scale. You're looking at market demands and where skill shortages are. So if that information is readily available and you did want to diversify your agency, well, okay, I've been doing IT, but actually there's a certain type of IT where we're making placements within 5 days of getting the role, etc. That's brilliant information you may not have otherwise been able to gather.
Yeah, absolutely. And the systems can do that so easily now. I think being targeted based on what that data is telling you. We mentioned the facts the industry's finding BD hard at the moment. There are some solutions kind of right there that will show you kind of the best paths to take. I guess for me it's interesting because what it does is start to change, I suppose, the skill set of a recruiter and what they need to do and what they need to know. So something we're thinking quite hard about is how do we support the industry with that kind of evolving skills need?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I guess it'd be also good, we're looking ahead at the future as well as we can with our crystal ball. So we think AI is going to play a big part. Do you perceive anything else in the next 12 months, Maxine, that agencies should be thinking about at this time?
Well, I think, keen that we sort of finish on a positive note as well. The outlook, we should say, like the outlook for labour market and growth next year is looking more positive than we sort of predicted a few months ago. So it should imply a kind of upturn in hiring. I think the government's sort of yet to set out the detail on industrial strategy, and that should provide a big opportunity, particularly looking at kind of the infrastructure needs of the country on where opportunity will be based on the sectors and the projects that government is willing to back. So, we'll be looking closely at how that plays out to see where some of the market opportunity might be. I think for us, there's a lot of focus still on the client and how we kind of focus on matching up what the industry can offer with client needs and recognizing kind of the evolving pressure, the evolving kind of pressures that they're under, and bring that kind of deep labour market expertise and, as you touched on, knowledge of kind of where the market is going.
I think that's where agents can be looking more and more to bodies like the REC for that support, because there's no doubt there's going to be more legislative change over the next 12 months. We know the umbrella rules are getting tighter, and April 26 are coming out. There's been some obvious cases this week that most people are probably aware of. And things are being passed back to the agencies to take more responsibility on. So there'll certainly be advice that's required. But I think it's also worth noting, I've been in this industry for over 20 years now, and the recruitment industry does well out of these difficult challenges. So there's always big legislative change, and whenever there is, it seems to impact recruitment more than anybody else. That might be a selfish view because I've been involved with it, but I think we always adapt well as a business. We always find a way of changing what we do and adapting to the situation and coming back. And I just see there'll be plenty of opportunities in the new year where we have to think differently as a group of businesses, but we always will.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Like the agility of the industry, like it's
Yeah,
always
that's the
there.
word I was looking
It's
for.
an entrepreneurial industry. It's an
Yeah.
innovative industry. They'll
Yes.
find kind of solutions to the challenges that are out there. And I think, some of it is about keeping in context. I think the national insurance rise, I think the kind of analysts predict kind of 50,000 job losses maybe off the back of it. But you keep that in the context of a labour market of 30 million people.
Yeah.
So I think some of it, we have got a role to play as an industry body, but as an industry as a whole, actually, to help give clients a bit of certainty.
Yeah.
And to,
right, they're
to make
headline
sure that
figures that are
talking
almost
about,
they're to scare, and actually when you put it in context,
yeah,
it's not quite as a big a fear as it sounds, is it?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, for us, the focus is on really making sure the government does understand the benefit of flexible work and why people want to work in different ways.
I know you guys have an audience with them, don't you? Regularly speaking and putting the case forward for the recruitment industry.
Yeah, we've had really good engagement at the moment. We have been around the table with the sort of cross industry bodies like the CBI and the chambers at all of the meetings that the government is kind of going through to look at the detail behind their intent. So we have got the opportunity there to influence it, and I think it is just setting out why temp work is different, but why it works for people. So it's a huge part.
To be fair, it's still early days of the government, isn't it? It feels like they've been in forever because so much has happened, I think. But it is still early days, and we've got to see what comes through. A lot of the things that they announce as day one things may not actually come to fruition when they sat down and thought it through. And I know you guys will be putting the point forward on those that are good and those that aren't, certainly. I think that was brilliant, Maxine. It was great to have your time and your expertise on these issues, and I end on a confident note that the market is picking up, and there's plenty of things that we can focus on and look forward to in the new year. Betty, have you got any questions from anybody you'd like to pose to either of us?
Hi. We actually haven't had any questions today, which means that I think everyone found the session useful and not confusing, which is great. But just to let everyone know, there's been a few AI bots actually topically in the chat, and we don't have them in our webinars, but that's because we send out the recording the next day. So it'll be available to everyone in a follow-up tomorrow, with also the contact details for both Rich and Maxine if you have any questions that come up at a later time.
Brilliant.
But for now, thank you from us all, and thank you, Rich. Thanks, Maxine, for everything today.
Yeah, brilliant. Maxine, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Richard. That's great. Really, really great to be invited. Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to doing it again in the new year.
Yeah,
thanks, everybody.
Merry Christmas to everybody.